Well, hello everyone. It's Joni here at Joni's Journals. How are you doing today? I've come along to do something a little bit different on my channel today. And I don't know how much will get done in one video. So this may turn into, I would say, not more than maybe 2 videos. But let me explain to you first what's going on. If you follow me on Instagram, you may have seen my post from yesterday where I showed everyone what I am calling my embroidery trio. Now, I can't get them all into one shot, so I'm showing them to you, well, 1 and 2 at a time. And what they are, I bought a cheap embroidery hoop die set on Amazon. I had seen someone using one on YouTube. And so I went to Amazon and I looked to see what I could find. And I found this one. And then I watched Tim Holtz's makes from last week. And one of the makes was something done by Louisa Heinzel, whom I happen to enjoy. And she had used a wooden, a wood-looking, but I think it was plastic embroidery hoop to create her make. And I found it very inspiring. And so what I've been doing for the past couple of days is working on my little embroidery hoop trio. And I thought that maybe I would share with you how I made it. And it's quite off the mark for me. I know I usually do journaling and ephemera, and things like that. But I thought maybe you might like to see how to do it, because this little section here, which is this, can also be used as a journal topper. And I have also been working on my compendium revamp, and I decided to use a Reader's Digest cover and cut my pages to fit. And so I can show you the beginnings of my cover, what I've done with it so far, and just show you an example, even though this one is not decorated, because this is what we're going to make. You could very easily use this as a journal cover decoration. Now, I do also understand that some of you don't have a die cutting machine. Some of you don't do die cutting. My solution to that was perhaps you might want to leave out the embroidery hoop, or you could disguise this as, for instance, this goes around the edge. Let's leave that part off. So even if you just wanted to use it as a circle, you could take a big bowl, trace around it, and then decorate it like we're going to do today. Mine does have a little bit of texture in it because this, and it, like I said, it is a relatively inexpensive set. I couldn't really afford, if you've been watching my videos, you know that my money for the summer has run out. And so I couldn't really afford to buy any of the bigger sets or the more expensive sets. And so I went over to Amazon and I found this set. And, you get what you pay for, although I will say it does cut nicely. It's not as fancy as the other one. And my texture on here may not be perfect, but it was enough for me to be able to play and see if I like it. And it has happened before where I've bought a cheaper set and then gone out and bought the more expensive set. So yeah, it does the same thing with stamps. But my little preaching over, you could just not even think about this set, or maybe you can figure out a way to cut one circle and then perhaps use, oh gosh, what are those things we used to use in school? A compass. And you could cut out an inner circle and create your own sort of embroidery hoop. I'm going to see if I can figure out a way to do it, and then I'll come back and I'll show you what I've come up with. But anyway, So these are the ones that I've made, and I'll show you on here. Basically, this is a Tim Holtz quote chip, this little thing here, and it says, "Together is my favorite place to be." And then I took paper dolls from his new set, which is Poses. And I found actually all three of these images of the children are from that that paper doll set. But you could use regular paper dolls. I do have a million of those, but I just pulled these out because I figured I would use it. And then what I did was I cut out a ton of my wildflower dies. And so that's what I've been using to decorate the backgrounds here on these. Yes, I know they're big, gigantic flowers, but hey, it's junk journaling, and we can have our own little imagination of our own little world. And so that's what I did. I've also taken flowers from his bouquet, which is this. I also got this on Amazon. It comes with its one gigantic flower set, but once you start cutting these little branches apart, you get 5 little flowers per branch, and that's a lot of little flowers. So what I did was I dyed them with alcohol ink in red pepper and butterscotch, because I just wanted to pick up the colors and not, I wanted it to be subtle, but still be decorative. And these are little buttons. I put thread through each of the buttons, and I decorated the corners. And that was sort of my element that brought all of these together so that they looked like a set. And then I have some letter chips, Scrabble pieces, if you want to call them that. And so, yeah, so I just made my little backgrounds using that. Here again, I used the flowers. I tried to incorporate the same thing into each piece. And so I have a few little flowers here and a few little flowers here. So what I thought we would do is we would get together today and we would work on making one of these little pieces together. I'm just trying to find a place to put my stuff. And so here we have our embroidery hoop. And like I said, I'll link the die set that I bought on Amazon in the description box below in case you want to go over and purchase it. I think it was about $8. I'm not even really sure. But I have cut out a ton of flowers from my wildflower die. So yeah, we have those. And then what I did was I went over them. And this is a cheap little set of leaves that I also bought on Amazon. Oh gosh, a while ago. What I did was I took each flower and each leaf and I went over them with a stencil. And I'll show you that just to bring a little interest to them, because I like to cut my flowers out of solid color paper. So we will do that. I did leave a few leaves behind for us to stencil over. And what else do I want to show you before we begin? I think that's about it for now. So I'm going to gather my thoughts and I'm going to gather all my stuff. I do have it all out on my desk, but now I'm a bit of a mishmash. And I will be right back and we will get started doing this. Okay, I'll see you in a few minutes. All right, and we're back. I just wanted to kind of clean up my space here and kind of get together what in my head I was going to do in a certain way. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the rest of my supplies. If I seem a little bit out of it today, it's because my husband and my daughter have gone away for the weekend. And so I'm feeling a little down. I wanted them to go and I was excited for them to make a nice trip together, but I'm a little sad. Okay, let's get back to what we're doing. What I did, once I die cut out my circle and my little embroidery hoop here, I looked at the background and I knew that it needed something. So what I did was I went through my stamps and I pulled out, I'm trying to make these so you can see them but not be reflecting. Maybe if I push the light back a little. I went through my stamps and I am surprised to find that I really don't have a lot of stamps that are flowers per se. And this was the closest thing I could find. And it's my Stampers Anonymous set, and it's called Pressed Foliage. It's CMS 376. I will link it in the description box below. I don't even know if it's available anymore. And as you can tell, I've hardly used it. But it's gigantic leaves. So I figured, well, leaves, flowers, they'll work. So I pulled those out. And then since my embroidery hoop, I wanted it to kind of look like it was wooden. So what I did was I went through my stencils and I pulled out my Tim Holtz stencil, and it's kind of like a wood grain. I remember buying this because I couldn't afford to buy the embossing folder at the time that it came out, which I think was last year sometime. And so this stencil is THMM173. And so I used this to create the wood grain, and we'll be doing this later on. And then because I wanted my flowers to have some kind of a pattern in them, I pulled out, this is actually, I believe, a Christmas stencil. I think I got this in a set from Joann's where you get the clear, they have a, Tim Holtz runs specials with them where he gives them a set to sell in their stores, which is usually a small set of clear stamps. And I have a few of them, and a stencil. And so the stencil is THMM174. Wow, I didn't even realize these are one right behind the other. And so we used the little floral kind of stencil-y looking thing to make the impressions onto my flowers. Now let me see if I can pull out a couple of flowers. Here's one, and you can kind of make out there's a little bit of a pattern here. It's a little bit of a flower. That's one. And let's see, let me grab another one. You can maybe see it a little bit better on this one. And then, of course, I did it on the dark colored ones as well. You really can't see it, but if you're up close, you can. It just gives it a little something, something. Okay, that's that. Now, let's just get this out of the way. Now, as you can see, my little designs are backed on something, and all they are simply is a piece of an 8x8, old 8x8 scrapbook paper from Tim Holtz, and I don't even know which book these came out of, but it's 3 of the exact same. And what I did was I just reversed the pattern on each one so that when you look at it, it's similar, but again, it's just not exactly the same. And I backed them onto a 6x6 canvas panel, one that looks like this. And I get these at Michael's, and they actually were running a sale, and I got 6, I think, for $5 and $5 and change. And so what I do is I take the Tim Holtz scrapbook paper and I glue it onto my panel, and then I wrap my panel around it, and I use that as my background place for my embroidery hoop. We will also be doing this later, and I'll show you a little bit better how to do that. All right, so enough of the chit-chat. Let's get started. Now, I think that maybe what I will do first is I will show you how I stencil onto the leaves and the flowers. Now, as I said, this is a set of leaves die cuts that I bought a few years back, and again, they were from Amazon, and they're not the best. Sometimes I have to sit and poke out these holes really hard. But what I did was I took my stencil and I will just lay it over the leaves, and because these are small enough, I can do 2 at a time. And I've been using my Distress ink in Scorched Timber. And what I do, I just simply go in and I just go over them with my dauber, and I stencil onto them and just give them a little bit of a pattern just to make them look a little bit more interesting. Simple as that. I'm going to put my stencil aside. and try to grab a hold of my leaf. And now you can barely make it out that there is a stencil on there. And maybe if I move my light over, you might be able to see a little bit better. But there is a little bit of a pattern there. So it just gives it a little bit of something, something to look at. Now, since we're stenciling, and since my fingers are getting dirty, let's grab out my piece of paper and we'll do some stenciling onto the embroidery hoop. Now, I also have gone in and I have colored onto the embroidery hoop using, I don't really even know if you can see it on here, using my Tombow markers. And I used grays and one of my gel pens to create the little pattern here that makes it look like it's a screw. Okay, we will do that. I didn't take out my markers, so maybe we'll do that in a different video. But let's just stencil, since like I said, I have my stencil out. My fingers are already getting dirty. And what I do is I just lay the stencil down. And again, I use my scorched timber. And I will just stencil across. Uh-oh, I think I got a star in there. Yes, I did. I didn't move my stencil over far enough. I'll just go around and I will stencil the pattern on. Like so. And in order to, oh, I covered up that star pretty well. In order to look like it's actually round, I just kind of turn the embroidery hoop a little bit in here. And because I want a variation in pattern, I'll slide my stencil to a different section. And I will just go around and stencil. And I'll just turn it a little bit again. And you'll notice that no, is my pattern perfect? Absolutely not. But as I always say, we are humans and not machines. And so now I'll pull the stencil to a different section. And I'll just go over it again, like so. And I'll turn it a little bit more and pull in a different part of the stencil. I think I just got a delivery from Amazon, because I heard my screen door close. My dogs didn't, but I did. And then I'll just go, and I'm very careful not to get the stencil on the little screw part on the embroidery hoop. So I will just kind of angle this a little bit away from there. And I will just finish up stenciling my embroidery hoop. Now, as you can see, it doesn't look perfectly real, but it's a little bit more interesting with the design on it. Okay, now we're going to put that aside. I am going to put away my scorched timber. What I will do once I go in and color the little screw head part, I will go around and I will ink the edges of the embroidery hoop. Okay, now what I think I'll do is try to find a cleaner paper. You can see I was experimenting. I have stamps from a company called Mackie or Maki. Oh, one of my flowers got stuck to the back here. Let's just see if I can pull it off. I've been, you'll see when we decorate the flowers on the hoop, because they are so much larger than the circle, what I will do is I will glue the flower down and then cut the excess off. Okay, now what we're going to do is we are going to take, I have been using, because I want my background to be visible, but not to overtake the embroidery hoop. I've been using my Ranger archival ink in Shadow Gray, and also again the archival ink in Pebble Beach. Okay, and I've been going around the edges of my embroidery hoop using, oh, there goes my printer, right on time, going around the edges of the, what's supposed to be the fabric part of the embroidery hoop. I've been using the gray, And I've just been inking around the edges like so before I go in and do my stamping. Okay, so let me just get that done really quickly. I'm hoping that you guys will follow along with this. Even if you can't make an embroidery hoop exactly the same as mine, you can still, like I said, you can follow along and you could make this a journal topper. I don't know if you've been watching Tracy's channel, but she started a new journal, and the other day she showed us how she makes a journal topper. So yeah, this can definitely be used for something like that. Now I'm going to go and I'm going to pick 2 stamps from my set. And I've been using this one a lot because I kind of like the rounded leaves. And then I've been using this one because basically we're not going to be stamping with the whole stamp. We're only going to be using sections of it. So I tend to just use like the top half. So I've been picking the ones that have the more interesting edge, sort of like this. I think this is an oak leaf here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to first go around and I'm going to stamp in my Pebble Beach. And I'm just going to go around the circle like so. Okay. And I will not overlap with this color, but kind of like go into the center section. We are under a tropical storm watch around here. So coupled by the fact that I am dreadfully lonely for my husband and my daughter, it is just me and the boys, and we're under a tropical storm watch. So yeah, okay. So you can see I'm just going around and I am just stamping the edges, and I'll probably just do 4 in the bigger leaf. Okay, so we have something that looks like that, and it kind of makes it look like I don't know if you've ever done counted cross stitch. It's done sort of the same way on the same kind of a fabric. I can't think of what the fabric is called, but you always see you see the little lines, and then you do the cross stitches on it. That's what this kind of reminds me of, is that the little patterns back there waiting to be used. Okay, I've picked the maple leaf because, like I said, the edges of this leaf are rather interesting, not so plain and boring. And now I'm going to take my gray and I'm going to go around and I'm going to just stamp in between those first images that I stamped. And see, we have that. And again, the stamp wasn't perfect. I must have not put enough ink on. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to put some more ink. But some of this will get covered up by the decorations, the flowers and the paper dolls and such. So if your image is not coming out perfect, see, I missed again. It doesn't matter because we can just cover that up with our decor. Okay, I seem to have enough on here. Now, am I bumping on something? No, I'm not. All right, so I'm just going to go and I'm going to push down a little harder this time to see if I can get a perfect image. That's better. Now you can see it's starting to come together and it's looking a little mottled, which is what I want because I just want the background to have a little bit of interest, but it doesn't need to make sense and it doesn't need to be perfect. Okay, so there we go. Let's take another leaf. Let's pull out this one. And let's take this leaf, and I'm just going to ink up the tip of it. And I'm going to go in, and I'm going to stamp that little section there that we missed, just to kind of fill it in, like so. And there we go. Okay, so now we have our background done. And we have stenciled our embroidery hoop. And so I'd say we're pretty far ahead on this. So I'm going to call this a wrap for now. And I will come back. I'm going to come back immediately after this. But I'm going to come back and I'm going to do another video. Because as I said, I don't know if there's a lot of interest in this. So I don't want to make the videos too long. I don't want you guys to be bored. If you're even watching. Okay? So I'm going to send you lots of love and big hugs and ask you to please remember to like, subscribe, and comment. And you can comment and let me know if you're liking this or not. It's going to be quick and easy. And so, yeah, I'll be back in a bit. And we will start decorating our embroidery hoop background. Okay? I'll see you then.